This is Cockeyed Optimist, Radio Free Rock, the show where we learn, talk, and rock. This is episode 2, the Second Amendment, SSRIs, street drugs, open borders, and my story. Paralysis unhinges locked doors, instant pre-acceptance like never before, emits deprivation down to my core. I used to be so stainless and so pure, your momentous occasion is not my war. Fatality demoralized leaves the mind sore, your unfair conduct creates no uproar. I didn't expect this, didn't know what's in store. Heaven, open up your ears, cause I can't even scream. Heaven, if you hear me now, I pray you set me free. My options extend to neither or nor. One false move and this place is a morgue. You're an ant on the sidewalk, too large to ignore. You trampled on me, I'm still unsure. Who authorized you to view the grand tour? If the face of a coward have come to abhor. Exhaustion forces you to the floor. It's funny, I imagined a little bit more. Heaven, open up your ears, cause I can't even scream. Heaven, if you hear me now, I pray set me free. Heaven, open up your eyes, I know you can see. Heaven, won't you lead me out, oh God, rescue me. You took it away. You took it away. You took it away. You took it away. Heaven, open up your ears. If you hear me, set me free. Heaven, open up your eyes, you can see. Oh God, rescue me. Heaven, open up your ears, cause I can't even scream. Heaven, if you hear me now, I pray you set me free. Heaven, open up your eyes, I know you can see. Heaven, won't you lead me out, oh God, rescue me. Hello, I am Cynda.
And I'm Sean.
And this is Radio Free Rock.
Cockeyed Optimist, Radio Free Rock.
Yes.
It's good to be back. This is episode 2. I think I can sum up what you're about to get into today, or what we're about to get into today, as a very heavy episode.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's gonna be hard for me.
Probably one of the more intense episodes of this show that we'll ever do. It's going to address, obviously, as the episode title suggests, a whole lot. And as we get to the My Story portion of the show, we're going to be delving into some very sensitive topics. So if you really can't handle topics that range from the gun violence epidemic to talks of sexual assault, this is probably not going to be an episode that you will want to watch. But if you're willing to sit, watch, listen, and learn with us, this is going to be an episode for you. Are you ready to just get right down into it, Cynda?
Sure. I just had to move the mic a little so that, when I'm talking to you, it doesn't get completely cut off.
Indeed.
So I'm just going to actually switch into straight up cardioing for a second.
And dissolve. And we're back. Look at that.
We didn't dissolve.
We didn't dissolve. So, obviously, the Second Amendment, we're going to go back to our trusty pocket constitution, and we're going to read word for word the Second Amendment.
And it's a short one.
It's a very short one, and I want to make sure that everybody understands this. as we are going through these amendments throughout the course of Radio Free Rock, we are taking everything at its word. We are not necessarily interpreting anything. We are going from the standpoint of what do the words on the page actually say. So with that, it's time for us to read the Second Amendment. Amendment 2. A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Let's read it again.
Yeah. A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Those are the words that are on the page when it comes to the Second Amendment. And I'm not the first person to tell anybody watching or tell you that the Second Amendment is a hot button issue and has been for the majority of our lives. I mean, I feel like when we were kids, people were talking about gun control in ways that I quite frankly didn't understand.
I think what set it off, Columbine.
Exactly. That was 99, and we were just becoming teenagers.
Exactly.
And so it was very much part of that growing up, coming of age conversation. Is Columbine High School is, I don't want to say the first, because I can't say that with certainty, but it was the first in the respect of the most highly publicized school shootings of our lifetime. That's where I would start with that. Obviously, this is a very nuanced debate. It's a very nuanced discussion. And because of that, I think it's a good idea for us to give some historical context for the Second Amendment, which actually starts almost 100 years before the Constitution was even ratified. In the research portion of our preparation for this show, I actually discovered that the right of citizens to keep and bear arms is actually not something that originates in the U.S. Constitution. It actually, believe it or not, it originates from the English Bill of Rights, which was actually on the day that we are recording this, which is November 5th. On November 5th in 1688, the Parliament convened to put together the English Bill of Rights. And in 1689, it was ratified. And basically, Parliament allowed, this is an interesting designation, Protestant English citizens to, quote, have arms for their defense, suitable to their conditions, and as allowed by law. That's very interesting. Because right there, from the English example, it establishes a self-defense clause, if you will, of a citizen to be able to own weapons of some kind to defend their home turf.
And it actually kind of ties it with religion.
It does.
Let's be real.
And that's the weirdest part for me. And we can even get into further debates about and examples of the Second.
Protestants were the Catholics, all in the UK, that whole thing. But
then even going further into American history, we can admit, because obviously we accept history warts and all, the right for the citizenry to keep and bear arms wasn't always extended to every single person living in America. It took a while until the Reconstruction era amendments for those rights to be afforded to the freed slaves. And so even in American history, this right has not always been something that everybody had access to. But this is the most interesting designation I think I've come across in our research, where it's not just about the citizenry, a specific citizenry being able to keep weapons for their defense. Now we need to put ourselves into the mindset of where were the founding fathers at in their heads when it came to writing the Constitution and the amendments of the Constitution.
First, they did not make it specifically like Protestants could have arms versus Catholics. It doesn't say that. It's
exactly
the right of the people to keep and bear arms.
Yeah. And it's important to remember that the first colonists, the first settlers of the Americas, the first European settlers of the Americas, came over here to escape religious persecution. And so I think a lot of that is imbued in the Constitution in and of itself, knowing that there was religious oppression in their homeland. They came somewhere so that they could escape it. From that point, it's also important to remember that all the framers of the Constitution were coming off of living under tyranny, to put it bluntly. The no taxation without representation, that was a real thing. It's not just a Schoolhouse Rock phrase. The fact that they lived without really having any voice within their parliament related to that.
We'll get to that when we cover the Declaration of Independence, because there's an entire list of actual grievances.
Right. But it's important to remember that there was big time oppression that they had just come out of. And so that was definitely in the minds. As reading this and taking it words on the page, it's very clear to me where their heads were at. And as a result, let's think about how the Revolutionary War played out. The powerful military empire of its day, the British Empire, the Redcoats, organized, know the rules of warfare. They know how to fight a war. The Continental Army was not a powerful army. It was regular, ordinary people who had weapons, oftentimes either they owned or supplied by some very nice allies to the American cause of freedom.
Many of them were originally state militia.
Yeah. And that's
the first part.
That's basically where I was going with this. The state militias at the time were actually going to be manned by part-time people, ordinary citizens. The Second Amendment was extended to the citizens to be able to keep and bear arms, to participate in the state militias. And they were actually going to receive on and off training in military combat, but the states were also going to pay the militias to actually do what they were supposed to do. To sort of, in a weird way, I would actually say the state militias are more like the reserves of the military these days. I was just going to
say that, yeah.
Where it's a normal person that's just living their everyday life.
But they've been trained. It's not like it's literally their first day ever.
Yeah, exactly. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Who is the people? Who is the people? Who are you to say who is the people? Because in my mind, the people is every American.
People is everyone.
The people is every American.
That is absolutely. I don't know how that's even a question.
But that's the questions that seem to keep coming up in the opposition of this. People are trying to decide who the people are. The people are all Americans.
The English told you, oh, it's for Protestants.
Yeah, but we didn't do that.
We didn't do that. And that's the beauty of our founders. They kept everything broad enough. Most of the time, the laws are, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal.
Mm-hmm. Who are the people? The people are every American. Anybody can go to a recruitment center for their military. Heck, there were 3 Army recruitment centers in my town where I grew up, and I even almost got recruited for the Army in the parking lot of a Best Buy.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I never heard this story.
Oh, yeah. Should I tell the story?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so I was just a few months shy of 18.
Okay.
And I just bored during the summer, nothing to do, decided I just was going to go take a drive, and ended up at the Best Buy in Burbank. And there were 3 guys in Army uniforms coming out of the store. I was going into the store. And by the way, I've never been the most physically fit guy in the world, but I had dropped a significant amount of weight, and I was probably very healthy at the time.
He's very strong, though. He is very strong.
Well, okay, but that's beside the point. But my point in bringing this up is that I was far fitter at that point than I had been in the recent past. The one guy stops me, and he's like, "Hey, son, what's your name?" And I'm like, "My name's Sean. Can I help you?" And he's like, "You ever given a thought to a career in the armed forces?" Like, absolutely not. And he's like, "No?" I'm like, "Nope. I'm a musician. I'm not a fighter." And he's like, "Well, we need people for the Army band." And I'm like, "The Army has a band?" He's like, "Of course we do. What do you play?" I'm like, "I play guitar." Like, do they play that kind of music? And he's like, "Yeah, we got guys who play guitar in the Army band." And I'm like, "Well, I've never really given thought to joining any military service. I just don't think I'm a good fit for this." And he insisted on giving me his card and saying, "Come by the recruitment center sometime. Maybe we can talk more." I did not go to the recruitment center and talk with him anymore.
And if you did, we may have never met.
This is true. So I'm glad in retrospect for two reasons. One, because we would never have met and this thing never would have gotten started. Two, I am not the kind of guy I know me. Military service and me are not going to go hand in hand.
Plus, at that time, you could have been forced to go to Iraq or something and fight in the traitorous wars of Dick Cheney and George Bush. Yes, I just said it. Traitors.
That happened.
Wow, I didn't see, and I never heard that story either. So I'm actually, that was really cool that got brought up.
It's just something.
It reminds me of is it In the Army, Pauly Shore movie?
Oh, yeah.
Where
Yeah.
they end up being recruited and then they end up, at the end, opening their
own recruitment center.
Well, it's the recruitment centers next to their business of like AV equipment, stereos and stuff. And so he says something at the end of the movie, a mutually beneficial relationship in only the way Pauly Shore can. And we love Pauly Shore. So Pauly, if you ever hear this, please do more movies. And we totally were at the Irvine Improv one night that you were performing. And I remember you saying this thing about your agent saying you were too recognizable and you'd be watching like a Revolutionary War movie or a French Revolutionary War movie and you'd die and be on the ground or something and people would be watching the movie like, is that Pauly Shore? I would actually love to be able to do that. Like,
there are quite a few things I remember.
Is that Pauly Shore? Yeah.
There are quite a few things I remember about that.
That was a really interesting night. He had shirts for if he were to run for office, and it was with The Rock. And since he's the Weasel, it was The Rock and the Weasel 2020.
The Rock and the Weasel 2020.
I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, that was great.
It was maybe in like 2019. I don't remember the exact, but yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Pauly,
we'd actually love to see you in a period piece. Would be great.
I'll take Pauly Shore in a powdered wig. I'll take Pauly Shore in a powdered wig. Okay, so after that little aside, where do we want to go now?
Well, we got to talk about the mass shootings that happen.
Yes, we do.
They've gotten more and more frequent. The question is this. How many of these mass shootings, whether that's schools or any public place, are the people on drugs? Either legal drugs or illegal drugs.
Yeah.
The first thing we need to bring up is SSRIs.
Mm-hmm.
And
basically antidepressants.
Antidepressants. And SSRI stands for Selective Serotonin Reuptake Inhibitor. And most all of them on the market have a black box warning.
But if you don't believe what we're saying, go look it up. Go look it up.
So right now I'm on drugs.com. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Right, drugs.com. Easy.
Drugs.com.
Basic.
Wow.
Okay. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter that's often referred to as the feel-good hormone. Carry messages to the brain cells and contributes to well-being, good mood, appetite, regulate body sleep-wake cycle, and internal clock. All right. This is a sentence I found very interesting. Historically, it was thought that depression was caused by low levels of serotonin and other neurotransmitters in the brain, although experts now do not think that this is the case.
I pause right there. That's drugs.com.
This is not
alternative news sources. This is not alternative media. The prevailing attitude of pharmacology and the prescription of pharmaceuticals is that the pharmaceuticals work. The pharmaceuticals do the thing. And yet right here, boy, we are in for a whole new can of worms thing.
If you want to pull this article up, it's from Molecular Psychiatry, and the title is The Serotonin Theory of Depression, a Systemic Umbrella Review of the Evidence. And I always prefer systematic. So when they do these sort of meta-analyses is probably the better word, that they kind of aggregate all the studies and take it into account, and then they make the judgment based on that. So this one's from July 22, and I'll just read the first little sentences. Our comprehensive review of the major strands of research on serotonin shows there is no convincing evidence that depression is associated with or caused by lower serotonin concentrations or activity. I'm just going to read that last part. There's no convincing evidence that depression is associated with or caused by lower serotonin concentrations or activity.
And this was published in 2022.
Correct. In the journal Molecular Psychiatry. The review suggests that the huge research effort based on the serotonin hypothesis has not produced convincing evidence of a biochemical basis to depression. This is consistent with research on many other biological markers. We suggest it is time to acknowledge that the serotonin theory of depression is not empirically substantiated. You gotta kind of wait. You gotta sit with that for a minute.
Yeah. This is sort of, as you said, you have to sit with it. And now that I'm sitting with it, it's just like, so what else is wrong?
What else is wrong? What else is a lie?
Yeah.
And in this new era of America, we're going to have to be willing to admit that some of the things we always held as true were just wrong, were a lie, were maybe propaganda. Look at tobacco science.
Yeah.
It took 50 years to get off of that.
Yeah.
And so this is more than 25 years that, hey, it's not empirically substantiated. So this whole chemical imbalance
might not be true.
Might not be true. And so with that, we don't really track. Oh, was this person that shot somewhere on anything? We have some of that data, but we don't have it all.
Right.
And so these are just questions, but they're questions that need asked.
Yeah. And they need answering. And I think, obviously we're talking about this overall arching study right now of depression as it relates to low levels of serotonin, the use of SSRIs. Do you have anything else on with this
just
one?
one more thing. Two of the authors actually went on more of a blog site called The Conversation. It's important that people know the idea that depression results from a chemical imbalance is hypothetical. And we do not understand what temporarily elevating serotonin or other biochemical changes produced by antidepressants do to the brain. We conclude that it's impossible to say that taking SSRI antidepressants is worthwhile or even completely safe. And that's why I brought up the black box warning. And that black box warning on most of the brands given is a risk of suicide ideation. And if you start to think your own life doesn't matter, it also translates out there.
Right.
And if you listen to these commercials and they read them, sometimes they specifically say, if you start to have thoughts of suicide or homicide.
Yeah. And the worst part is that this was a study published
in
in the
2022.
21st century. But we even have examples going back as far as the 80s. The one at the printing factory. I wish I would have taken more notes on that one, but I did not.
But that person was on an antidepressant.
That person was on Prozac.
Yeah.
And even back then, the question was being asked, did Prozac play a role in the lashing out?
And it was actually found out that Lilly,
the
manufacturer, was sued for, loss of life and,
Yeah. And right here, I have something that I came across in the research. The manufacturer of Prozac secretly paid out to the victims $20 million to basically make it all go away.
To secure an innocent verdict for them.
Yes. But this payment was hidden for 2 decades.
2 decades.
Trial records show missing documents, defying a judge's order to find those documents. And even back before the FDA approval, one of the doctors who reviewed Prozac for FDA approval even said that with new evidence coming to light about Prozac that had been kept from him back in, I believe it was 88, 89, he would have changed his opinion on whether or not to approve Prozac for the market.
And so that sort of brings us to what we were talking about a little bit this morning, the butterfly effect or whatever. And I was like, it's actually, I would say prefer the ripple effect, where could there be? These are questions we will never know. But if that verdict would have come down as guilty,
Mm-hmm.
and a big red flag would have been put on Prozac,
Mm-hmm.
drawing attention to it, and hey, doctors, if you prescribe this, you may be held liable or something in court. If we didn't have 25, 30 years of people on Prozac, would we be having some of these mass shootings?
Yeah.
We don't know the answer, but that is one of those ripples. And if that instance would have been different, could it have rippled out and changed things now?
And sadly, with the prevalence of pharmaceutical drugs, antidepressants, the numbers of mass shootings are just going up more and more every year. I can't remember what the count was. I heard it actually just this morning. I can't remember the number, but as of 2021, there were 690 mass shootings. That's more than like 2 a day.
Wow.
That's about 2 a day in 2021. So this is a statistic according to the National Institute of Justice. Once again, all these references in the description. You can check it out for yourself. 77% about of mass shootings between the years of 1966 and 2019 used handguns. 25.1% used so-called assault rifles. I don't really like using the term assault rifle, but that was the term that they used in this study.
That's very surprising, though, because we're always told that it's just the AR-15s. That's what's making this happen. And this research is very clear. That's 3/4 of it is contributed to handguns and 1/4 to the assault rifles.
Right. And
so that's like literally the opposite of what I thought.
Yeah, it was the opposite of what I thought too. The data indicates that the perpetrators of the mass shootings were in a quote unquote state of crisis in the weeks or days preceding the perpetration of the shooting. That the majority of mass shooters are men, 97% of them. White men, 52.3%. And then the lower demographic underneath that were African Americans. The statistics were around 20%. And then Asian, Native American, and Latin American made up, other demographics. One of the things I love about my church small group is it's such a slice of life. We've got so many different guys from so many different backgrounds, Mexican guys, black guys, white guys. it's always so interesting me, even in that group, to see where everybody's issues really are. And one of the things that I see with this white man statistic is that I know a lot of white guys that deal with a lot of mental stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of white guys that deal with things that gnaw at them in the brain. I know more guys that are, and have in the past, do currently, are African American, that more have personal issues with other people.
Other people and family. And
yeah. And the other demographics are kind of the same thing. They don't have this propensity for
getting in their head
exactly.
So much. Yeah.
White guys we're always up here.
No, he is that way for sure. I'm always the one that has to pull you out of that.
Yeah.
You know?
And hey, look, through no shortage of work, I am getting way better at dealing with that. But it's an interesting
these
breakdown.
Are questions that we need to ask.
Yeah. But at the same time, the white guys always favor the pharmaceutical drugs. But more and more are starting to shift over to the street drugs.
Yes. And so street drugs. Everyone doesn't want to acknowledge that they're even there. Well, I can tell you personally, and I'll tell you in a little bit how I know they're there. You're just going to have to wait. I think we've all been hearing about the fentanyl epidemic, crisis, whatever word you want to use. So I'm just going to read this one stat about fentanyl that I found, actually two stats that I found very, very surprising. Okay, first of all, it's a synthetic opioid. So now we've gotten into the synthetic territory. Oh, and this is from addictiongroup.org. Sorry. Fentanyl is a powerful synthetic opioid that is 50 to 100 times stronger than heroin or morphine. Now, people started getting morphine addictions in the 1800s, really, I would say, is when you started hearing about it. Like, one of my favorite novels is Anna Karenina, and towards the end, she gets hooked on morphine to sleep, and it makes her more paranoid. There was that really great episode of Little House on the Prairie where they had Albert getting hooked to morphine. That was a really, really intense episode. It was really good.
Yeah, a lot of great period shows, period pieces that have to do with addiction. Dr. Quinn had an episode about morphine addiction.
And so we have that history of morphine, you know? And then I would say heroin. Man, I feel like you really felt heroin in the 80s and 90s.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Heroin seemed to be the grunge drug.
Definitely. Yeah.
That's really the time where the phrase heroin chic came into being. I'm sitting here absorbing it and just knowing that I know a guy who died from a fentanyl overdose. Wow. I didn't.
Well, and the other stat is nearly 9 out of 10 opioid ODs in 2021 involved synthetic opioids like fentanyl. So that's 90%.
I think the worst part of it too is that it's not just the fentanyl in and of itself. It's also that the fentanyl is finding its way into other street drugs too. Yeah, I don't want to talk too much about my friend that died, but it does make me think. I don't remember hearing about him getting hooked on fentanyl. It was more there was fentanyl in his weed stash.
Well, and maybe we can put this chart, maybe we can overlay it on the video.
Yeah, let's go ahead and put this up on the screen.
Because basically, it's a chart of fentanyl deaths per year in the U.S. from 99 to 23. And in 99, it looks about 800. And it really started taking off about I would say this first really like blip is between like 2013 and 2014. And then you see it logarithmically jump each time. It just logarithm, up, 13, 14, 15, 16, and it just keeps climbing. And it decreased a smidge in 23, and that's where this chart ends. But it's over 70,000.
So obviously, street drugs contribute to crime.
Street drugs contribute to crime.
And this is another aspect of the gun debate that we find ourselves in. Because one of the things that we know is that the drugs come through the southern border via the cartels, via smuggling. However it is that the drugs get in, that's where they get in.
And sometimes it's actually not just the drugs, too. The other day, I was reading about they caught 2 guys that were smuggling in hundreds of guns as well at the border.
And so it's sort of this cycle. The money generated by the drugs comes in to fund making more drugs and reinforcing the authority of the cartels in their area. They do that through intimidation. They do that through power grab, but also making sure that everyone within their organization is armed.
Mm-hmm.
How are those people that aren't part of the apparatus of getting the drugs, of making the drugs, of smuggling the drugs, how are they going to fight back against these people that are armed to the teeth? The only way to do it for the people on this side of the border is their constitutional right to keep and bear arms. In my mind, people like that, that's the current state militia.
Mm.
When we were going back even to the English Bill of Rights, defense of their land. This is our land. This is our home. This is our territory. We're not going to put up with it. Because despite everything that a government could possibly do to try to mitigate the drug crisis, it's only gotten worse.
And so this is where the open borders absolutely needs addressed. Trump has definitely been working to secure the border. And the highest point that the southern border that people were crossing was December of 2023. Pew Research reported that in that month, 250,000 people crossed at the southern border. The BBC reported it was 300,000. And then in total, northern border, southern border, and people flying in U.S. border customs, they reported about 370,000 people. And so it reached its height in December of 2023. I found it interesting when looking at the sort of trend chart. It all during Biden, basically, it was higher and about as high as during Bush. And again, back to like Bush, not a good guy. Like
so no, I'm sorry. The levels went as high to the Bush years.
Bush years.
Which what you're not saying is that the numbers of border crossings were lower during the Obama years.
Oh, the Obama years were the low.
But apparently his numbers were lower than Bush or Biden.
Oh, way lower. Maybe we'll have to throw that chart up too.
Maybe we will throw the chart up there. Hey, future Sean, go ahead and throw that chart up there.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Man, that's an interesting pill to swallow.
And so I think that actually leads me to tell my story.
Get ready, friends. I do want to take a moment, though, to point out that a lot of people who are familiar with the band have heard this story before. You may have heard it in a different way, shape, or form. Some of you that have maybe seen us at a show may have heard this story live. I'm going to just be quiet, and I'm going to let you say and share as much as you want to share. So, madam, you have the floor.
Well, it was 2007, January, so during the Bush years. And that's why when I said this seems like a good time to bring it up. Border, pretty open during Bush, if you look at the charts. And like I said, we'll have to throw the charts up. So, we went to music school together, and my first winter break in town, I didn't go back home for Christmas, so I stayed around, and our school was open. I went to school a night to practice, and as I was leaving school, I went to my car, and a guy jumped out from behind me, put a gun to my head, and said, "Get in the car and drive." And these are the moments that your whole life flashes in front of you. You have no idea what's going to happen next. And you just go into survival mode. And so I just did what he told me to do. And so he wanted my money to buy drugs. And I was a poor college student. I had $15. And he made me drive downtown LA, Skid Row. And yes, Los Angeles, it's not different now. Downtown between 6th, 7th, some 8th streets. It's dirty, tent cities.
And I'll just interject a small aside here. We actually drove Skid Row as recently as a year and a half ago. From start to finish, we drove on Skid Row.
And you know what you actually see? You see the people that look like the fentanyl zombies, where it literally, they're kind of crunched over and look like it's a zombie movie. It feels like a dystopian movie. So that's downtown Los Angeles. And so he made me drive downtown. And this is when I realized that the war on drugs was fake. All we had to do to get the drugs, let's just drive, holler out the window. There are people out at night with the back hatch of their car with coolers. Everyone, they're not camping. They're not having a picnic. This is not food time. The coolers are full of drugs. And I saw multiple LAPD cruisers go around as I have a gun to the back of my head because he got in the seat behind me. None of those police officers seemed to want to stop at the people with their back hatches and the coolers. They just cruised around. And I realized in that moment, they could clean up the streets, but they don't want to. They don't want to. And what's the reason for that? Well, we'll probably get to a little bit of that.
Which means somebody is getting something.
Somebody doesn't want them to.
For turning their eyes away.
And he buys a little piece of crystal. He slams it down on the console of my car and says, "This is drugs. Don't do drugs." The drug addict has a moment of clarity. And so he made me drive to my apartment, and he tied me up with my own belts and raped me. If I would have tried escaping, I might not be here. And so that was when the cockeyed optimist inside me just said, survive. It doesn't matter what he does to your body. Just survive, because if you live, you win. And so I was like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to live. And I convinced him that I would be missed at work. I worked at Walmart at the time in college, and said that people would miss me if I didn't, get to work on time. And after being held captive for about 16 hours, he let me go. And it was one of those things that you're in shock because you can't believe it's actually over. You can't believe that you did live. Right away, I drove to a friend's house and they took me to the hospital. It may have changed since then a little bit, but the doctors at the hospital would not give you any sort of checkup, anything like that, until you spoke with police officers when it was a rape. So they asked me if I wanted to talk to the police officers that were already there at the hospital, or wait for a female officer to talk to, but it was going to take about an hour for someone to get there. And so I said, no, I'll talk to these officers that are already here. It's very hard sometimes to judge in yourself what is the worst moments, And I think it's hard to say. But this is one of the worst things. When I told the officers my story, it wasn't good cop, bad cop. It was like okay, medium cop, and evil cop. The evil cop he would barely let me talk. And he just kept saying, you're lying, you're making this all up. You and your friends that brought you in here are on drugs. And I even said, test me. You can test me. I'm not on drugs. And he just kept saying, I'm a liar. And he knew I was lying, and that he would testify against me in court because he knew I was a liar. And I was just stunned. I was in double shock from the trauma, and then to have this laid on me. And it didn't make any sense to me in the moment whatsoever. I'm just completely stunned. Why is he telling me that I shouldn't report this, that I'm lying? Why is he trying to get me to drop the charges? And that goes back to what I said a few minutes ago. They could clean up the streets. The LAPD cruising around town while people are selling drugs right out in the open, right out in the street. We're not talking back alleys. On the street. But they don't clean up the drugs. They don't clean up the streets. And so it makes me wonder, and especially now, all these years later, why did that police officer want me to drop the case? Why didn't he want me to press charges? Why did he want me to just not say anything? I don't know. I don't think I'll ever know officially. I hope it wasn't just laziness, that he was just lazy to fill out paperwork. Because that's his job. But I don't think it is. I feel like it's some other reason. They don't want the crime to end. They don't want the violence to end. They don't want the drugs to end, because this perpetual cycle of violence destabilizes the country and brings in all kind of policies that destroy America. And part of what our founders talked about is the general safety. The general safety of the citizens. Well, that night, I realized that the general safety was not on the menu in Los Angeles.
It's fair to say that your general safety was of no consequence to anyone.
No, I did not back down. I did not drop the case. I did not say, okay, yeah, I made it up, because that's not what happened. And this is before Me Too. This is before people actually were believing victims more. And God bless Rose McGowan for doing that whole thing. I'm so grateful that she did. But then it actually almost in some way went the other way, where people started getting accused that aren't guilty. As Solomon says, the wise man avoids all extremes.
Yeah, unfortunately,
and that's why one of the 10 commandments is, thou shalt not bear false witness.
Yeah.
Well, I knew I wasn't bearing false witness. So I did not drop the case. I was very lucky because it got transferred to a different jurisdiction out of one part of LA to the Hollywood LAPD. And those officers took me to the rape treatment center to get checked out and everything. And so in the sort of immediate aftermath, guess what, people? I was on drugs. They gave me some strong drugs. I don't know what they gave me. I don't know.
But what was the expressed purpose of
The
them?
drugs were to prevent STDs and HIV. HIV is obviously an STD, but I didn't actually even know there was any drugs that prevented HIV until that day, you know. So it was just a sort of to prevent HIV and other STDs. And they gave me whatever it was, really strong stuff. I would be down for the count, sleeping 16, 18, 20 hours a day, and hallucinating. 2, when I was awake. It was terrifying. I was actually supposed to take them longer, but then the one place didn't have them because you're going to the free clinic and they're supposed to like connect. And so I ended up only taking them for a few days, but I think it was supposed to be a couple weeks. But that's probably better in the long run that it was only a couple days.
Again, the ripple effect. Who knows what it would have been like if you had taken them any longer.
I'm sure those had black box warnings on them too, since they were hallucinogens. Then right after that, I had to go in. I did the police sketch, which that was also very interesting because it was no way what you expected. Like, it was so different than the movie. It's not like that. They don't just you don't just describe a thing and then they guess it. They show you hundreds, thousands of pictures of criminals that have already been, like mugshots. And it'll be like, pick out a nose, pick out an eye, pick out a forehead. And then you kind of, like the woman, she essentially made a collage and then drew the collage. And it was scary how accurate it was. And so from that police sketch, I don't know, it was only like 3 more days after that. It was a few days because everything's such a blur. You're like all drugged up and you're sleeping and you don't know. Time is all weird. But it was a couple days that just from that police sketch that the detectives called me and said that we got him.
That's incredible. I can't.
So if you actually have police actually doing their job, they can get stuff done and quickly.
That's incredible.
Then I come in because they call and say they got him, and they show you the 6-pack.
The lineup.
Which is not the lineup. It's not, they don't, everything, like most everything in a movie is not how it actually is. It's not, okay, maybe if it happened like that second, like that day, and there's like 12 people all getting mugshots taken, yeah. But it's not like they bring back all these people and just have them constantly standing against the wall with the tape measure. No, they print out pictures and they call it a 6-pack of 6 criminals. And obviously, immediately, I knew the one. There was no question. There was no, oh, it's only in black and white. Oh, it's this small. You know right away. And you know one of the first things the detective said to me? Did he say anything to you about shooting another person? And I said, yeah. He said that he shot someone earlier the same day before he kidnapped me to steal their watch. I don't think they died. And I do believe it was another criminal from the way the detective asked it and was framing everything. But it doesn't matter. Shot someone else. Same day. So my fate could have actually been shot. Dead. I could have been a homicide statistic. Or the psychopath said to me, if I shoot you right here, you'll die instantly. And if I shoot you right here, you'll be paralyzed from the waist down for the rest of your life. That's the terror that is unleashed when we are soft on crime. When the borders are open and anyone...
Important detail that you've left out. This man that did this to you...
I will say that in a minute.
All right. I want to make sure, because the worst part about this, not just knowing that this happened to somebody that I care about, that I love, is that this story ticks every single box on this list of things we've been covering today.
Mm-hmm.
From gun rights and ownership to the access to guns, to the pharmaceutical drugs, to the street drugs, to the open borders, to the soft crime.
You were bringing up that Newsom just signed some new California law into...
Yes. So basically, I don't know if it was through the assembly or anything, or if it was an executive order, but Gavin Newsom just signed a law in California that is not allowing the sale of new Glocks, which are a type of gun. I don't know guns, so I can't clarify anything. But apparently, these guns can be modified to be fully automatic by simply utilizing a little piece of just plastic that can be 3D printed.
And as a victim of gun violence, I want to say this. It doesn't matter. It will make no difference. Gavin Newsom did not just make California more safe for me or anyone else. Why? Years ago, I was actually trying to make a new mic stand, like a little clip for it that...
Oh, yeah.
Because I was very tired of anyone who's a musician. These ones are pretty good. Gravity mic stands, very good. I really like them. But our sort of standard stock mic stands tend to, over time, the boom falls and it gets really weak and it's very unsturdy. So I was trying to build a part for that. And I didn't really know anything about CAD drawings, but I was trying to draw it out on CAD and how to get it 3D printed. I go on Google because I had never used a 3D printer and I search how to use a 3D printer. That's what I'm searching. And Google's first suggestion for me was to make a gun. I will tell you, as a violent crime victim, the criminals will always find a weapon. It does not matter. And so if you sit up in your loftily, I've never been through anything, and just say, if we ban all guns, we do away with the Second Amendment, crime will go down. I am telling you, unequivocally, it will not. Just because you've never been on the deep web doesn't mean someone else hasn't. Just because you've never been downtown at midnight buying drugs doesn't mean other people aren't. The criminals will find a way to do their crimes. Mm-hmm. And this just takes the defense, using them to defend yourself, away.
Yeah.
And so since you wanted me to tell the rest, I'll tell the fallout. The fallout.
Now we've got him.
Now we have
the
him.
legal process.
Now it's the legal process. This is what I thought I was an anarchist. I thought I didn't believe in law or whatever. I didn't realize I was an American. I believe in this. These guys knew what they were doing. I thought I was an anarchist because of all these experiences, because I was like, the government doesn't work. There is no point. There's no point voting. It's all a lie. Because unless you fix it from the top down and the bottom up, we're all screwed. So when I have to deal with the LA District Attorney's Office, and there's another thing. Man, I'm cracking open movies today. There's not one district attorney, okay? The DA. There's a DA's office. The bigger the city, the more district attorneys there will be, okay? So let's just clarify that one, all right? One of the DAs, obviously, you have a DA to represent you, and then the criminal has one to defend them. So I have to, talk to that guy, tell him the story, all of it. And I had to go to a pre-trial. You don't just go to the trial and it's just you tell. No, the criminal is there in the room. So I had to see him again. I had to get up on the stand and testify. And I had to sit there as his defense DA, a woman, just tried to make up lies about me, saying we were on a date, saying we were going to a restaurant, saying that I invited him to my house to have sex with me. And you're just sitting there on the stand saying, no, 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 no. And I realized that's where I thought I didn't believe in this. I thought I didn't believe in this because I was the victim and I was being treated like the criminal. I was the one on trial. My credibility, not his. And so, yeah, I guess it made me kind of cynical, made me kind of jaded, whatever. I accept that. But your experiences shape your perception. And if you haven't been through some of this stuff, you just don't know. So when it was all said and done, this person only received 2 years in jail. When I'm talking to my DA on the phone, he tells me that, one, I should be happy because most rapists never spend a day in jail, which this is true if you look up the statistics, okay? So I should be happy. Second, that, remember, Bush years, we cannot deport him because we have a bad relationship with Iran.
And that was the important detail. He was an Iranian illegal migrant.
They wouldn't deport a citizen. Hello, that's not how it works.
That's why I said that the worst part about the story is it ticks all the boxes. It ticks every single box, and it shows every single wart, blemish on
the
system, top down.
Mm-hmm.
If there's one phrase I've known you to have a very big dislike for, it's, well, gun to my head.
I hate that phrase. I despise it because you don't know what you would do unless you've ever had a gun to your head.
Yeah.
People use that so cavalier. People say things all the time so cavalier. And then they accuse you of saying you don't know what you're talking about or something.
Right. In this case, you know what you're talking about because you've had a gun to your head and you've had to make decisions with a gun to your head. I think what I want to do now is I want to talk about the bright spots in the aftermath, though, because I think it's important. And obviously, the song that we played at the beginning of the show
Well, that's not obvious. So I'll say the song that we started out with was a song I wrote during that time period in the aftermath where I was so angry, so devoid of answers that I just needed to start writing my angry feelings out. And that's probably the only song in that time period that I actually finished. But that is the impetus for what started this band. Because being a cockeyed optimist means that you have hope for the future, even if the present is dark. And so I still had hope for the future, even though I was very suicidal after this. Definitely. But writing songs, it got me through it. And so starting to write the music, obviously, we met and started this stuff.
Yeah, we met in like 2007.
End of the year.
Yeah.
This was happened at the beginning of the year. We met towards the end.
Yeah. There's one other song that we're going to play.
So on the day that I had to go downtown, LA Superior Court, whatever the building's called, and testify at the pre-trial. That morning, you know those feelings when you're doing something that is the hardest thing that you've ever had to do and you're just sick to the stomach and you can't eat, you can't sleep, nothing. It was one of those days. And so I listened to one song on repeat over and over and over until I had to leave. That was the only way I could go. Like, that's how I could do this. I'm wearing the shirt, Breaking Benjamin shirt. The song is Had Enough. And was that the first Breaking Benjamin show I went to? No, it was the second.
The one in Riverside.
The one in Riverside. And before the show, we decided to get some dinner.
Yeah, we decided to get some dinner at a pizza place. It was at the Riverside Civic Auditorium.
That place was cool.
By the way, if you've never been to a show there, I loved that little auditorium. That was very cool. But we're on our way back to the venue after having had dinner, and we're walking towards the main road. Out of the corner of my eye, I see it did not register with you.
First.
But out of the corner of my eye, I see this tall guy, sunglasses, backpack slung over one shoulder. He's walking next to a shorter blonde girl. And just out of like peripheral awareness, I just turn my head a little bit and I say to I realize, oh my God, that's Ben.
Yeah.
That's Ben Burnley from Breaking Benjamin.
And then so
in a split second, I made it my mission that I was going to make sure that you got to meet him.
And so you just say it to me really quickly.
No, I
quietly.
didn't. No, I didn't. I was like, I think that's Ben.
Well, but
that was all I said. And so I just gingerly adjusted our pace to keep up with him / slow down, ease in. And when we stopped at the intersection, red light, waiting to walk, I just turned, did another take, and just looked over at him and said, hey, man, really looking forward to the show tonight. And that started a conversation.
It was very quick.
And I got to put Cynda with Ben. And
I got to say that the song Had Enough got me through some really difficult times. Because it did. And then he said that...
I will never forget his reaction and what he said to you. Genuinely, it was like, oh my God, that's so incredible. Thank you so much. Oh my God, we're not playing it tonight. Yeah, I'm so sorry.
And I wasn't upset that they weren't playing it. But just to be able to say, look, that song made a difference in my life. I was so glad that we had that moment.
Yeah.
And
I'm glad we got to have that.
Let's play that song now.
So we're going to play that song. And that was your story through and through, ticking all the boxes. It's a tough thing to go through. This is all tough to talk about. But you've had enough. It's time to play Had Enough. So let's play Had Enough.
Milk it for all it's worth. Make sure you get there first. The apple of your eye, the rotten core inside. We are all prisoners. Things couldn't get much worse. I've had it up to here. You know your end is near. You had to have it all. Well, have you had enough? You greedy little bastard, you will get what you deserve. When all is said and done, I will be the one to leave you in your misery and hate what you've become. Intoxicated eyes no longer live that life. You should have learned by now. I'd burn this whole world down. I need some peace of mind, no fear of what's behind. You think you've won